Welcome back to Instigating with Clarkie and Drury. I'm Ryan Drury. That is Chris Clark, also known as Clarkie. We're brought to you, as always, by CoolBet and our friends at the Listowel Squash Courts. Check them out on Facebook. They have a men's league. You can join and just go check out the courts and get involved and have some fun. Clarkie, this episode's not going to be fun. Obviously, we have to talk about the biggest story in sports right now on certainly on this side of the world. And that's the ongoing Chicago Blackhawks saga, if you will, around this sexual assault. And we're recording this on Thursday, October 28th. Yesterday, on October 27th, the world learned that the man known as John Doe in the lawsuit is Kyle Beach, a former Blackhawks player. He was an 11th overall pick in 2008, I believe it was. Out of the Spokane Chiefs program, and he was a black ace on the Stanley Cup roster in 2010 when this incident with now former Blackhawks video coach Brad Aldrich occurred, in which he sexually assaulted Kyle Beach. And we learned an awful lot of things over the last 48 hours. The day prior, on Tuesday, the full report by Jenner and Block and Associates came out. Former U.S. Attorney Reed Shar held a press conference and basically detailed all the finer points of this, including some extremely graphic details. I should warn people at this point, we are going to be referencing sexual assault and the implications of it numerous times throughout this episode. If that's something that upsets or bothers you, I would advise you maybe not listen. But Clarkie, it was bad enough when this surfaced, and we had referenced it on, previous shows we've been on together. We've talked about it at length. It got worse on Tuesday. And it got a whole lot worse yesterday. When Kyle Beach made the brave decision to reveal his identity in that now famous interview with Rick Westhead of TSN. If you haven't seen it, I would advise
everyone
that
needs
you watch
to see it. Everyone needs to see that interview.
It's extremely difficult to listen to, and I understand the sensitivity of the subject matter, but in the interview, they don't get into the graphic details. It's more just about the emotional impact that this has had on Kyle's life and unfortunately other lives that Brad Aldrich affected with his actions that went unaccounted
because of the
for.
failures of the leadership of the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the blunt way of saying it, isn't it? And it's a reality we're all now aware of.
I don't think there's any other way to say it. There was some huge failures. Huge.
Clarkie, I'd advise you to watch the interview. I don't know what your opinion is, obviously, just by virtue of being born long before I was. You've seen a lot more NHL and really just sports over the years than I have. I think I can confidently say in my time watching the NHL anyway, beyond other sports, I think yesterday might have been the darkest day in NHL history. I can't think of anything that quite affected me and probably everybody else that watched that interview more than what we saw yesterday. Just your thoughts on it when you first, obviously we all heard amazingly that Kyle Beach was willing to reveal his identity, and then what was said to Rick Westhead in that 25 minutes.
Well, let's first of all give a lot of credit to Rick Westhead, and sadly wonder if this story would have come out if it wasn't for his investigative reporting.
Extremely valid point.
It's very
Katie
sad
Strang,
to think, right?
Mark Lazarus, Scott Powers, a number of other people. You're right. Yeah.
So kudos to Rick, and then for Kyle Beach to come forward yesterday. And yes, it was a very awkward watch, but I encourage people to watch it to see what this guy has gone through, and to feel the pain that this guy's gone through. And then like all the failures that led to then a 16-year-old getting assaulted by the same guy. is so tragic. It's just like it seems to me, one mistake after another led to all this. And then 2 hours after the interview with Kyle Beach airs yesterday, the coach who knew about it was allowed to coach a hockey game in the National Hockey League. That blows my mind. It absolutely blows my mind. Like, the NHL has suspended people before pending interviews or investigations. They couldn't have done that here. They couldn't have done that. It's just, you talk about the NHL. This is a huge blunder on their part, and it's sad that it led to Kyle Beach and another person, I guess, was it in Michigan?
Yeah.
Being assaulted. So yeah, it's crazy. It really is.
Yeah. What's upsetting as well, there's so many things that are upsetting, and I'm trying to gather my thoughts here. Obviously one of the most upsetting things is the neglect of the use of power that people above Kyle Beach that were supposed to be looking out for his best interests declined to use.
And let's talk. Let's the president of the team, the general manager, the head coach who hired the video coach, Aldrich.
Joel Quenneville.
Those three guys, right? Those are the three guys. That I'm not saying no one else should have come forward, because someone else should have come forward.
No, but they're in the crosshairs.
Those are the guys, the three guys who are front and center for sure.
And I am willing to give a salt grain of credit to Rocky and Danny Wirtz, who are the president and CEO of the chairman and CEO, I should say, of the Blackhawks. Of course, Bill Wirtz, Rocky's dad, was the longtime owner, passed it down, for making the investigation public. The full 107-page report is available on the team website. I will give them a sliver of credit for that. Mm-hmm. I will give them a sliver of benefit of doubt for, basically claiming that they were unaware of what was going on. I'm willing to believe that, based on the fact that I very much doubt, based on the cowardice that we have seen displayed here, that John McDonough would have went to the owners and said, by the way, we completely ignored this claim. And obviously John McDonough is hiding in a spider hole somewhere. We haven't seen that guy in about a year and a half since he was unceremoniously fired. We have no idea if it's connected to this or not. Really doesn't matter. No. But you're right. John McDonough, who was the president of the Blackhawks, Stan Bowman as a general manager, and Joel Quenneville, who really came under fire last night, because if you read the report, and certainly large important portions of it were all over the internet, Stan Bowman, who I am willing to also give a salt grain of credit for at least seemingly being the only one who was willing to be cooperative amongst the people who had the heat to their heels here, if you will. I will give him no more than that, though, because of his dereliction of duty at the time. But he is quoted in the report as saying that Joel Quenneville was there in this alleged meeting after the Western Conference Final against the Vancouver Canucks before they played the Philadelphia Flyers. That Joel Quenneville was there, as was
he was there
allegedly Kevin Cheveldayoff, who's being interviewed on Monday. He is now the general manager in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Stan Bowman says they were there,
and
that when this subject came up at this meeting that was held with the powers that be, that Joel Quenneville felt that it was a distraction to pursue this, because they might not have a chance to win the cup again, and it would be a distraction in their pursuit of their first cup at the time in 49 years.
What a shame that would have been.
And obviously these are unimportant details now because of the larger abuse that's occurred and that was left alone for 11 years and ruined Kyle Beach's and unfortunately other people's lives.
Yeah.
But it has to be said here that I appreciate the work that goes into being a video coach in any sport. But if you actually believe that suspending this guy in the very least, that's the worst part about all this, Clarky, is they couldn't even do one small thing right.
Well, let's not say that's the worst thing. But
well, okay. It's just
no. We know what the worst thing was. The assault was the worst thing. Let's get that straight.
But it builds. You're right.
Yes.
It builds. It all builds this unfortunately disgusting mountain of turmoil when they can't along the road get even one small thing right. You couldn't.
Well, that's like what I said.
It was with Quenneville. At the time that this occurred and was in front of everybody in that room, you couldn't suspend Brad Aldrich. You couldn't, dismiss him. Your Stanley Cup.
You write a recommendation letter. You let him parade around with the Stanley Cup and take it to his hometown. That's what you do when you know there was something going on. That's what you let him do. The Chicago Blackhawks.
That team back in the day that was up until a few days ago celebrated was fragile enough that a video coach being let go, or in the very least just put on administrative leave of some sort, would have cratered their Stanley Cup chances. I mean, they won 2 more. You mean to tell me that in the very least, putting this guy on administrative leave, and then it's bad enough that they didn't address it right away. So there's failing number 1. They decide, and this is Stan Bowman's testimony. This is his words, that these guys, including Quenneville, were in the room and said, we can't let this become a distraction. There's failing number 1. They decide to brush it aside. Failing number 2 is they don't put him on administrative leave. Okay, now they win the Stanley Cup. They allow him to continue being around the team during this entire time. They allow him to, now we know in the report, allegedly assault an intern with the Chicago Blackhawks at those Stanley Cup celebrations, that being Brad Aldrich. You let him take the Stanley Cup to his hometown to a high school with kids. You let him celebrate in front of Kyle Beach without ever putting any mind to actually looking into this, even after the Cup final's over. Now you've achieved your goal here that you deem more important than a human life, and you still pay no mind to it. And then, it just gets worse and worse. You just mentioned Joel Quenneville. They allowed him to resign, and Joel Quenneville wrote him a letter of recommendation. That's also according to Stan Bowman. And he went on to work at University of Miami in Ohio, and then went to Hutton, Michigan, and working with the hockey team there at that high school, he assaulted and destroyed the life of a then 16-year-old who is now 24 years old. And Rick Westhead mentioned in the interview that he had spoken with his family or in interviews he's done since, and said that young man's life is in shambles. He's had a marriage fall apart because of this. He's struggling like you would assume anybody would be, like we know Kyle Beach is and has. The Chicago Blackhawks, in my opinion, that era of what we used to perceive as unbelievable success. Let's be honest, a year ago, when you talked about the Chicago Blackhawks from 2010 to 2018-ish, were one of the most celebrated sports stories in the history of the NHL. A modern day dynasty, 3 Stanley Cups in 6 years. That is forever tainted. And it's not just the 2010 championship when this horrific incident occurred. It's 2013 and 15 too, because the powers that be that allowed this to happen were all still there. Want to mention Al McIsaac too, who was involved with the Blackhawks for a long time. Him and Stan Bowman were allowed to resign the other day. I don't know why it wasn't announced that they fired them.
Yeah.
Every little moment is another PR disaster where they cannot steer this right. Even the owners, even Danny Wirtz in his statement said, I've directed our legal team, and Steve Dangle, who's going to be on this episode later, and his podcast touches on all this. And we're recording this Thursday. Friday, a new episode comes out. They're going to have Rick Westhead on, and I would encourage everybody to watch or listen to that. Steve mentioned this on his podcast earlier this week, saying that, they brought up, I believe it was actually Adam Wilde, his co-host, that Danny Wirtz said, I've directed our legal team to reach a settlement, even though we believe we have a great defense in this case. We're still, meaning that we still think if we go to court with this, we're going to win. But I've directed our people to reach a settlement anyway, essentially given the public backlash. They can't even just say, beyond anything that's gone on here, we're going to do something right and reach a settlement. No, you had to mention, oh, by the way, we still think we'd win the case, but we're gonna tell our legal team to dole out some money here. And Rick Westhead said something, and I was listening to Mark Lazarus on a podcast before we jumped on here, basically saying, how do you even go about figuring out what that is? Because Kyle Beach was an 11th overall draft pick, an extremely highly touted player.
Mm-hmm.
If this doesn't happen to him and he's able to become even just a regular NHL player, he's 31 now, would highly likely he could probably still be in the league. How do you put a number on the career earnings? Would he have become a 50-point player? Would he have become a 90-point player? Playing on a line with maybe Taves and Kane, who have also completely fumbled the PR. Fumbled's a gentle way of putting what they've done, alongside other teammates like Duncan Keith, who was on that team. And let's talk about that a little bit now, the players. Many are claiming, outside of guys like Brent Sopel and Nick Boynton, many are claiming that the entire team knew. And of course, Kyle addressed it as well, that numerous players made fun of him at practice for the altercation, which is horrifically disgusting. Let's just assume that maybe Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane are telling the truth and they didn't learn about this till later. Even if that's true, what they decided to say yesterday, alongside their current head coach, Jeremy Colleton, was absolutely embarrassing. Instead of being in any way contrite, they decided to go on a PR tour for Stan Bowman and Al McIsaac, basically talking about what great guys these guys are. But I understand that Stan Bowman has a relationship with both these guys. Patrick Kane lived with his family when he was a rookie. I understand that. But unfortunately, people in your lives, in all of our lives, are capable and might do things that are extremely unbecoming and outright disturbing. And it turns out sometimes that we don't know people as well as we think we do.
Yep.
And to come out in the media after seeing what Kyle Beach said and say, I have a statement here. I couldn't believe this when I read it. I just couldn't believe it. This is what Jonathan Taves said after the game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I quote, "To me, Stan and Al, make any argument you want. They're not directly complicit in the activities that happened. It's not up to me to comment on whether they'd like to deal with it differently or not." This guy's a captain in the NHL. "I just know them as people, and I've had a relationship and friendship with them for a long time as being part of the Blackhawks family. People like Al and Stan have made coming to the Blackhawks for players around the league who come here to play one of the special places to play hockey. To me, I have a ton of respect for them as people."
What do you say about Kyle Beach?
He said he was sorry to Kyle and that he wishes if he had known he could have done something. That was the smallest part of his statements, because believe it or not, Clarky, Jonathan Toews, who I can never look at. Jonathan Toews, I have a Canada flag hanging behind me here. He used to be my favorite Canadian player ever. For all the things
I have a Team Canada jersey with his name on it.
In the World Juniors, the Olympics, everything. He's my favorite Canadian player. And I can't look at him or Patrick Kane or any of these guys the same ever again, or that organization, as long as all these people are still there.
Here's my question.
Okay.
When did he say, and I know the answer, but when did he say he found out about it?
Jonathan Toews is claiming that he did not hear about it until training camp the following year.
Right, which was 2011.
Yes.
And what did he do about it at that point?
He did nothing.
Correct.
And whether you want
don't be so proud to say, I didn't find out about it until 6 months later.
Yeah.
Who cares? You didn't do anything about it when you found out then.
And here's
you let this guy go to assault another. Like, they got to live with this, Ryan. And you talk about Kyle Beach and this guy was the victim. And he is really, besides the Kane and Tate, have we seen an interview with Stan Bowman? Have we seen an interview with McDonough? Have we seen an interview with Joel Quenneville? These guys, these are obviously they're cowards. Yeah. And now they're come out and say you screwed up.
Not one person has been able
man up to it.
And I want to touch on that aspect of it too. The non-apology tour, because
it's awful PR. And I'm not talking PR is a big, but it's just this league. Again, I go back to this guy was behind the bench last night coaching a game. He's going to come out hopefully tomorrow that he's banned for life, because that's what should happen. But you know what will happen, Ryan? He'll resign. And that's all that'll be said about it.
Yeah, and that's on the Florida Panthers in that respect, because Bill Zito,
it's the NHL.
No, absolutely.
It's the NHL.
But the Florida Panthers could have made the right move last night.
Oh, sure. Yes, they could have.
And Bill
There's
Zito,
a lot of people who could have made the right move, including the guy who knew about this.
Yep. And Bill Zito apparently flew with Joel Quenneville to New York to meet with Gary Bettman, which is a whole other side plot in and of itself. But you're right. I believe all these people that are complicit in this should be banned from the league. Of course, I saw a couple reports that Aldrich's name is being removed from the Stanley Cup. It's likely they're going to put X's through it. Wow. And I believe that's the way it should stay. And I kind of agreed with what Mark Lazarus said in the podcast I listened to him on as well, basically saying, I don't think these guys' names, Bowman and whatnot, should be removed from the cup. I believe that there should be something put up in the Hall of Fame, basically addressing what they did, so that people know forever that this was there, and not erase the history, but confront it and get in front of it for future generations and say, by the way, these guys that won this cup, they did something horrifically heinous that makes this cup nondescript. And that's the real crime here, Clarky, is that hockey has a real problem here. And of course, sexual assault is a giant societal problem, but hockey is a sport, you and I both know, that constantly parades around and trumpets and prides itself on being described as a sport that's all about the team and brotherhood or sisterhood and being together, being one. You see dumb, shitty slogans all over arenas that say stuff like all in, one goal. That was the Blackhawks thing. One goal, one family. Until something like this happens and a sexual assault occurs, and you don't want the organization to have a distraction and you cover it up. It's amazing that you'll see teams go, a guy misses a game because a kid is being born, or a family member dies, or Jonathan Drouin came out bravely and said he stepped away from a team on a Stanley Cup run because he had mental health issues. And it's amazing. Oh yeah, we support guys then. But when something serious like this happens, all of a sudden the one family thing rings pretty hollow. The team thing seems pretty hollow because a bunch of individuals chose to not act on something and protect one of their players. And it's inexcusable. And I believe, just like you said, that they should all be banned for life. And for people going, oh, you canceling people and blah, blah, blah. This isn't cancel culture. This is consequence. There are consequences for what you do. And these guys all made millions of dollars doing what they did. And it's a privilege to work in something like the NHL, not a right. I hope they had good accountants, because they should never work in the sport again, any sport.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just embarrassing to me. And you know what, Clarky, honestly, I think the worst part for me, and probably for many people, and I'll let you comment on this after, but I think the worst part for me, honestly, when Kyle Beach was talking with Rick Westhead, and Rick addressed, obviously, that Brad Aldrich was allowed to move on and unfortunately sexually assault a then 16-year-old on the Hutton high school hockey team. And Rick asked Kyle, if that player's watching right now, what would you want to say? And sorry. And then Kyle Beach felt the need to apologize,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For not doing enough. I just thought, wow. It's gotten this bad. This guy was wronged by so many people at every turn, and seems to be the only one apologizing for anything.
And that's what I said earlier, Ryan. That's exactly what I said. He's the only one that has been able to come forward and talk about it, and he's the victim. And for these other guys to hide behind statements and everything else is an absolute joke. It really is. And these people should never be involved in hockey again. And it's for Kyle to be living with that burden on his shoulders is unbelievable. And I'm hoping he has a lot of support around him. We've seen what's happened with other people who have been, assaulted. And I'm not talking about there's people, unfortunately, every day. But the ones in the media that we know about in hockey, like Sheldon Kennedy and Graham James, and then the Maple Leaf Gardens with Gordon Stuckless and Martin Cruz, and Martin took his life, and it is very tough to get through this, and I just hope Kyle has a lot of support around him to get him through it, because he's living with a lot of burden, and he's the only one that's had the bravery to come forward and speak about this. And it's unbelievable.
It is, I apologize. I just,
no need to apologize.
I'm emotional as is. Yeah. And I mean that yesterday, when he said that, I mean, it just floored me. I couldn't believe it. And I'm glad you brought that up too with Sheldon Kennedy and everything that happened, and Gordon Stuckless. And I thought of them immediately after. I just thought,
I mean, this is about Kyle Beach. Let's be clear.
100%.
But there's,
but I thought, how must those guys be feeling watching this years later?
Yeah.
And going, still.
Yeah.
And to see it be handled like this, it must just be emotionally obliterating. And I just cannot wrap my head. And I've said this numerous times to you and friends over the years, and I've never meant it more than now. I do love hockey, but God damn it, I hate the NHL. And I've never hated the NHL more than I did yesterday at 6:00.
And I don't understand too, Ryan. I know they have to do their due diligence. I don't know what else. I don't know what. I just don't know what Joel Quenneville can say that would make him exonerated in any way. Like, I don't know. Like, he's already said, oh, I was brought into the meeting after it had started and they were talking in general. I'm sorry. I'm calling a little BS on that one. I'm sorry. I know I'm speculating here, which I didn't want to do tonight.
Well, but Stan Bowman.
But come on.
Stan Bowman says he was there.
Well, yes, he's not denying he was there. What he is denying is knowing fully about. I'm sorry. I don't buy it. But Ryan, I think we've broken this down, and I mean, I don't know where else.
I don't know what else to say other than to say that I cannot believe that Gary Bettman, really at the start, the Florida Panthers and Gary Bettman allowed Joel Quenneville to coach that game against the Boston Bruins. We saw in the MLB this year, Trevor Bauer was accused of sexual assault. And as soon as the police notified the Dodgers and the league, and I mean, I can't believe I'm giving Major League Baseball credit for anything on this show, but as soon as they were made aware that it was being investigated by police, they immediately, alongside with the Players Association, the Major League Baseball Players Association, immediately put Trevor Bauer on an administrative leave, and he did not pitch for the rest of the year. He was not allowed at the facility. He did not get to be around his teammates, nothing. And the NHL, this damn league, can't get anything right. And it's amazing to me that Gary Bettman waited until Thursday when we're filming this to talk to Joel Quenneville and Kevin Cheveldayoff.
I know. Well, he hasn't even talked to Kevin yet. He was supposed to talk to Kevin Monday. And now, no, they've changed it now. They just came out and they're going to talk to him Friday.
Great.
I don't get it. There's lots of flights, and get on a flight and like,
Chris, how many times in NHL history have you seen something crazy happen on the ice? Let's just go back not that long ago to the Tom Wilson Panarin incident. How many times have you seen something crazy happen between two teams?
Suspended pending hearing.
And the next time that they play, where's Gary Bettman? He's immediately on a bird with Bill Daly to be in the seats.
The hearing's always like the next day. It's always before the team's next game. Like, just get on with it. Like, I don't.
And the league continues to fail Kyle Beach, and he mentioned that at the end of his interview.
Donald Fear too. He said, the Players Association knew.
The PA, Donald Fear should be walked out. He's complicit in this. All these people, and I had a friend reach out to me last night that said, they can't fire everybody, and I said, yes, they can.
and then he
said to me, well, when does it stop? And I said, when pieces like garbage like this are not in this league anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a privilege to earn millions of dollars and be in the entertainment business.
Yep.
You're answerable to the fans. We make the league what it is. We pay money into this. You are answerable to us and to people like Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just briefly read the small statement he made at the end of the interview, where he was quoted as saying, the NHL is inclusive. The NHL includes everybody, and they let me down and they've let others down as well. But they continue to try and protect their name over the health and well-being of the people who put their lives on the line every day to make the NHL what it is. That's Kyle Beach at the end of his interview with Rick Westhead. And you mentioned the fine. I mean, this is the NFL with Ray Rice all over again, isn't it? Ray Rice is suspended for 2 games. Roger Goodell blatantly lied and said that they didn't see that video. And then all of a sudden they see it after TMZ got a hold of it. Then now Ray Rice is suspended. That's what this is. $2 million to a team that's worth billions and billions.
That's a quarter to us. We're a quarter.
Gary Bettman thought it fit to fine Lou Lamoriello $3 million and a number of draft picks for trying to sign Ilya Kovalchuk to an illegal contract.
Or to the cap. Yep.
$3 million.
Yep. That sums it up right there. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
I hate this league. I really do. And God bless Kyle Beach and everybody else affected by this.
Yeah. That's all you can say right now.
I don't know what else I can say.
I think we take a break, Ryan, and we'll come back with.
Yep. Let's collect ourselves. And when we come back, we'll chat with Steve Dangle. I'm sure he'll have a thought or two to offer. And then we'll try and dig into talking about the Maple Leafs as awkward as it is to move on to something else. We'll do our best to do that. We appreciate you watching. Welcome back to Instigating with Clarkie and Drury. Ryan Drury still with you alongside Chris Clark.
I've changed my clothes.
He's changed his clothes. We've now bled into Friday, October 29th, and we are very pleased, as promised, to be joined by a great special guest. You guys know who this is. He is the preeminent voice of Leafs Nation. You know him from the Steve Dangle podcast, the Steve Dangle Podcast Network. He's a star. Steve Dangle Glenn. He is a star. Steve, how you doing, brother?
You called it, Clarkie. Yeah,
there you go.
I'm doing all right. I'm going through all the fun dad stuff where your kid brings home a cold and coughs into your mouth, and it's really good. It's really good. But the Leafs snapped a what was it, 4 or 5 game losing streak, so I'm as happy as can be.
They did do that. Finally, 4-game losing streak. They snap it in overtime off a beautiful play on a breakaway by Willie Stiles. And it was against the Chicago Blackhawks. And Clarkie, our viewers.
Should we just wrap this up? Let's just wrap this up.
Yeah, we
got some new news, right?
We talked extensively in the first part of this episode about the Kyle Beach saga and the mistreatment, the gross mistreatment he suffered at the hands of the Chicago Blackhawks. Steve, I'd love to give you the floor here now and get some of your thoughts on this. I know you guys on the Steve Dangle Podcast Network are going to be talking to Rick Westhead, the guy who spearheaded this story on Kyle's behalf today. And I'd like to give you the floor now as we learned the news last night that Joel Quenneville is no longer the head coach of the Florida Panthers. Your thoughts on the situation? I know you guys talked a lot on Wednesday's episode of your show. Just your thoughts on this whole thing and what ultimately ended up with Joel Quenneville last night.
I think the biggest lesson from maybe the last 24 hours, so after Kyle Beach did his amazing interview with Rick Westhead, is how big the machine is. You hear about the amount of people that were in that meeting with the Chicago Blackhawks Brain Trust, McDonough, McIsaac, Bowman, Quenneville. Quenneville got a lot of heat for the actual quote because he's quoted in the meeting. Kevin Cheveldayoff is not, as if that exonerates him. And I'm not sure that's the sort of meeting where you can't speak up as well. And now, and let's not forget, some of the things that Akeem Alou said, that Kevin Cheveldayoff said to him. This is a very big machine. The Chicago Blackhawks players, did they or didn't they know? Did they or didn't they perpetuate the harassment of Kyle Beach afterwards and potentially one or two other Black Aces? Did they perpetuate a bad culture? Another story that I think will evolve, and I'm not even sure when we got this information, but there were 37 people who refused to participate in the Jenner and Block investigation. And I believe Ryan Rashog tweeted yesterday that Duncan Keith was one of those people because he didn't feel like he had anything to add. Well, why not give Jenner and Block the opportunity to make sure of that? Duncan, like this guy who has been a leader for so long, Jonathan Taves with completely inadequate words after the Leaf Chicago game the other day, Patrick Kane. It's an enormous machine. And Kyle Beach took 11 years to speak up against the machine because it's this. How do you think you can beat that? How do you think someone will believe your story when a machine that large wrongs you and doesn't back you up?
Yeah. That's well said. And I think that's exactly what everybody in the hockey world was thinking. And Joel Quenneville has now paid a price for it, albeit, and I said this to Clarkie before we went on the air, that I got to be honest, I'm kind of disappointed in the statement that Gary Bettman put out, where he basically said at the end of it, albeit saying that everything that occurred was unacceptable, I'm really kind of disappointed in the end of his statement where he leaves the door open for Joel Quenneville and Stan Bowman to come back to the NHL someday, where he says if they ever want to come back, they're going to have a meeting with me first. What is the purpose of that? And I know what people out there are saying, some people, oh, they're canceling these guys. They're which is essentially, through their quotes, what Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane were basically saying. Jonathan Toews saying that they were not complicit, in his opinion, which is one of the worst things I've ever heard a hockey player say. I don't know why he thought that was appropriate. But when people pay a price for something that they do that's wrong, and in this case, something that was extremely wrong, they mishandled a situation here that not only affected a player that they were responsible for's life, but unfortunately later an intern's life and a young teenage player in Michigan's life, who Kyle Beach felt necessary to apologize to. When people are punished, that was the absolute worst part. And I got emotional last night talking. That was the worst thing I've ever seen in a sports interview in my entire life. I just couldn't believe that. And they should feel, if they didn't feel ashamed before, that lone clip should make everybody in that organization feel ashamed. It's not canceling people when they're punished for their actions. And the NHL, Clarkie, you said it last night, it's a privilege to be involved with a league like this. And in my opinion, Joel Quenneville and Stan Bowman and everyone else in that room that chose to sweep this under the rug, that's what they did, don't deserve that privilege ever again. I just wonder your thoughts on that, Steve.
Well, I don't remember who said it, but it's very cut and dry. If either of Joel Quenneville or Kevin Cheveldayoff were still members of the Chicago Blackhawks organization, they would have been fired days ago. It's that simple. I saw some people tweeting their concern for, the players and fans of the Florida Panthers and of the Winnipeg Jets. Mm-hmm. Guys, like it's just so much bigger than that. And yes, this should have been dealt with 11 years ago, but for all the reasons that we laid out, it couldn't be. Mm-hmm. And Quenneville and Cheveldayoff, to me, are part of the reason that it couldn't be, unless we find out some more details, because this is such a breakneck speed evolving topic. To me, it's very cut and dry. If they were still with the Chicago Blackhawks, they'd be long gone.
Mm-hmm. They absolutely would. Clarkie, just before I let you jump in here, Emily Kaplan from ESPN tweeting this morning, Blackhawks owner Rocky Wirtz wrote a letter to Lanny McDonald, the chairman of the Hockey Hall of Fame, asking for Brad Aldrich's name to officially be removed from the Stanley Cup. And she tweeted out a full portrait of the letter sent by the Wirtz family to Lanny McDonald. So some more movement there. Clarkie?
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to say in conclusion to this is, yeah, I don't understand why the league has let these guys resign, at least publicly. Why couldn't they issue a ban? Why couldn't they ban these guys and make it more of a
old boys club?
Optically, I think obviously it was at the end of the day, but it's sort of like, you know what? We'll let you resign. How about
on
that?
your
terms?
Let you
on your terms.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I really don't get it. I also think Bettman really dropped the ball with the 37 people Steve was talking about who didn't. Like, Bettman should have said, if you want to play in this league, you're going to talk to these people. Plain and simple.
The NHL didn't even want to investigate it themselves.
Of course not.
Public pressure forced the Blackhawks to bring Jenner and Block in. That's what happened.
Right. Right. So I just don't understand why they let these guys resign. It just ban them. Say they're banned.
Yeah.
Like
That
that to me would have been a way stronger of a statement. But
would have been the
anyways,
right
like,
thing to do, Clarky, which
Yeah.
this league consistently does not do. And I would just say in closing, for anybody out there that's still feeling bad for these people and feeling like they're being canceled, what a lack of empathy. Because if Kyle Beach was your brother or your son or your dad, I doubt you'd feel that way. I really don't. I'm sorry.
Well, and something on that note, because when I found out it was Kyle Beach, I mean, it was going to be disgusting no matter who the player was. But when I found out it was Kyle Beach, I got really boiling upset about it. And it's ironic that I'm talking to you today, Clarky, because I remember Kyle Beach from when we did RBC Junior Hockey Magazine. And I remember the narrative around him. I think he was traded mid-season to a contender in the WHL. And I remember the narrative around him was, well, hey, you're a really talented player, but are you going to behave yourself at your new team? Because he was kind of a wild player. You know, he put up a lot of points and he had a lot of penalty minutes. And I think with that came a certain reputation. And this is how power dynamics work. When Brad Aldrich said, I could ruin your career, that's what he's dangling over Kyle Beach's head. He was, hey, people already think this. I can make your life so much more difficult with that ammo. And it's just different versions. What happened to Kyle Beach? What happened to Akeem Alou? In the same organization, did that make me mad when I found out it was him, because I understood the context.
I think it made a lot of people mad, Steve, because, you know, someone, a couple reporters tweeted out old scouting reports of him following the incident, because of course he was traded to the Rangers and then ended up in Europe, where he is now in the third tier of German hockey. And all the reports, this guy's got character issues. He's a problem. He's this and that. All of a sudden the light bulbs have gone on, and it makes a lot more sense now in the most unfortunate way possible.
Yep.
All right. We will try as awkwardly as we can here, you know, to move on from, you know, I said it yesterday, Clarky, probably the darkest day in NHL history, in my opinion, in my time I've viewed the league, to something a little more fun, or at least something you two are very passionate about. I mean, it got fun on Wednesday when they won, but the Maple Leafs, let's talk. Clarky seems unsure.
Clarky's not sure.
Well,
Steve,
no, I'm going to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Because
take over.
We were texting throughout that game, and at one point I said I sort of want them to lose, because I think something's got to happen with this team. They do. Something's got to give. And
what is that?
I don't know. You know what? I started shooting you some names of some coaches who are out there. And it's not that I don't like Sheldon Keefe, but can this guy do it? And then I look, okay, if they do get rid of Sheldon Keefe, my first thing is, who's better? Who's out there? Right. Now, the first name I threw out was Torts, and I'm like, yeah, that might not. But then I thought the perfect guy for this job is Bruce Boudreau. That's what I think. But anyway, Steve, what do you think?
How many coaches are we going to give this team?
Yeah, enough to win.
What Just I'm saying.
I hear you. I totally understand. And Brian said the same thing. These millionaires getting another coach, it makes them sick. But just keep bringing them in until they win. That's my thing. Who cares how much they pay them? There's no salary cap. The Leafs make a lot of money, even though they laid me off, because Lord knows I was making too much, I guess. But anyway.
Well, I wasn't making too much, and they still laid me off, Clark. Don't worry.
I wasn't making too much either.
Yeah, they man, it's not about the money, because it's not my money. It's just at what point is it the core? At what point is it the common denominator with these guys? I was in the middle of tweeting, I hope there's a trade tonight when John Tavares scored. And so I deleted it. I'm like, okay. And then sure enough, they tied it, and I go, okay. And
it would have been way more fun if they had a loss, like as bad as it would have been.
Yeah, it's I agree with you, except it was the Blackhawks.
Well, I know, but and that's the thing. Like, who did they impress here? They beat the worst team in the league who hasn't won a game. hadn't even had a lead, which
Yeah.
they now have.
It was a rare night where I think the entire hockey world wanted the Leafs to win. So I tried to bask in that. But you're right. They barely beat just this really garbage heap team. The Blackhawks are bad. I thought they might struggle. I didn't know they'd be this bad. But I tell you what, Matthews, going woo at those fans in the corner.
Yeah.
After the OT winner, Mitch Marner joking about his broken teeth after the game in the media. I was sort of like, oh, there they are.
Mm-hmm.
That's Austin. That's Mitch. Like, I don't think any of us don't think that the Leafs have talent. Like they have at least probably top 10.
Yeah,
talent.
when they want to.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. And last year they consistently wanted to. Even on the nights where they weren't perfect. But this year, I mean, even throughout that game, Matthews yelling at Hall, and when he had the puck, he was very engaged. But when he didn't, it's like someone shutting off your PS4 controller. He just there's something
Don't worry, Ryan.
so wrong. Clarky, how when you play your PlayStation.
Yeah, no, I totally understand.
Clarky's very familiar with a PlayStation controller. His favorite button is R1.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah. Trip City.
You're a big poke check guy?
Oh yeah. He loves a poke check.
Yeah, then I get pissed off when I get penalties.
So maybe, yes, they barely beat one of the worst teams in the league by the skin of their teeth, but I think it could be a nice mental reset for them. And for the love of God, you got the Red Wings on Saturday. They look better this year, but that has to be a win.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you would think so. They just came back and beat my Caps in overtime, who are a good team. And the Red Wings, they've got some new young talent. That Lucas Raymond kid is unbelievable so far. Larkin's flying around. Like there's no lay down easy games in this.
I can't wait to watch Tyler Bertuzzi, because I went on the app last night, and like the NHL app was highlighting Bertuzzi for tomorrow night against the Leafs. Is he allowed to play?
I believe he is, because
he is. I didn't think he was. Where are we at here?
I think there's only one unvaccinated player in the league.
Okay,
it's him.
I thought it was him.
It's him. Yeah, I don't believe you will see the Red Wings leading scorer. I don't think you will. So he's the lone guy left, because Blackwood has begun his process. He tweeted that out, or the Devils did on his behalf. So
it's Blackwood who I was thinking of.
It's pretty much Tyler. Right. So he's the lone wolf, I guess. But yeah, Steve, I'm curious, what you think in a broad spectrum, because if people aren't familiar with your LFR videos, and I don't know how you don't know about them, if you know,
how dare they?
They are must watch internet television. They are must see. And you've talked recently in videos during that little losing streak about how, this isn't game 5. It's not game 6. It's 5 years. Yeah. And I agree with you. And we've talked numerous times, and you can see the Capitals regalia behind me. It's very similar. Like, I was getting pretty angry in 2012, 2013, 14. We also unceremoniously blew a 3-1 lead to the Habs. That was a lot of fun. And the core did stay together, but the difference, in my opinion, is one, the Capitals still had enough cap space to shuffle the pieces around. And they went through a lot of coaches, including your beloved Bruce Boudreau, Clarky, who I think's an amazing coach, by the way. But they kept them together. I mean, and they figured it out eventually. But I wonder if the situation isn't a little different here because of some of those salaries. Because the difference, I would say, in the two teams is Ovechkin was putting up points the whole time and in the playoffs. Backstrom was putting up points the whole time and in the playoffs. When you look at 18 games in the playoffs without a Mitch Marner goal, their start to this season making very, very elite money. It's a little disappointing, and I kind of wonder, Should they fire Sheldon Keefe and give these guys an out? What have they done to deserve that?
I don't think there's any way Kyle Dubas is firing his guy, like his hand-picked.
Well, then they both might go.
Well,
I
that's
think
on the players, right?
Dubas would get fired before he fired Sheldon. I think he would rather follow that sword, honestly.
Wow.
I do too.
The number that haunts me the most about that series is 19, which is the amount of points Nylander, Kerfoot, and Spezza had combined in 7 games. You can't lose that series. You can't. You can't. Campbell with almost identical numbers to Price. Oh my God. Oh my God. You can't. You can't. There's no situation where you could lose that series. And it's the Stars. It's the Stars. So I was thinking they play that series 99 times. 100 times. They win at 99.
Mm-hmm.
But James Myrtle came on my podcast because we were talking about the Tavares injury, and he made a great point that I hadn't really heard anyone make, because that's a genuinely unlucky moment, right? You can't plan for that. But when you have so much money dedicated to 3 players, you leave yourself vulnerable for those situations. Because if one of them gets hurt, unless your league minimum or AHL guys are unreal, you're screwed. You're in a really tough spot. Case in point, well, first of all, they had the U of T goalie backing up. So there was that. Clarkie, they should have got you.
I was open. I was available.
You should have had someone with a little bit more experience. I don't know who that Bishop guy is.
Yeah, exactly.
You got the equipment. They should have had you. But do any of us think Jake Muzzin is playing healthy right now?
God, he doesn't look like it, does he? Something's up.
Something's definitely up.
No, but who do they replace him with? They're going to have a second pair of Hall Dermott,
Timothy Liljegren. Like, where's that guy? Liljegren? Yeah,
you know what I mean. So I think, and look at Frederick Anderson in Carolina right now.
Oof.
A guy who.
Hey, he played well for the Leafs in the regular season too.
He did, but I think he also played hurt for like 2 years.
Here's the thing, though, and I've brought this up to you, Clark, and you get mad when I do it because you refuse to give Freddie any credit. We are talking about a guy that did carry a team to a Western Conference final.
Great.
Lost in
overtime. But what have you done for me lately, dude? That's what I see. I see him letting in an easy goal every time they need a big save.
But here's the thing.
That's all I'm saying.
Here's, I think, what Steve's point is about Carolina. Way better defensive team, way better blue line. I think we all agree there. And in Anaheim, he had the same thing. And he's healthy. So you combine it with worst blue line in Toronto, and because of that worst blue line, of course, there's going to be more opportunities for him to let in a bad goal. He doesn't get that as often with Carolina, Anaheim. That's all I'm saying. Steve, continue.
Well, my point was more about health. And
yeah.
So they have guys playing hurt because of their cap restrictions, in my opinion. I don't know. That's just my theory. And when guys get hurt to the point where they're out of the lineup, they're left vulnerable. And, you know, I was excited with some of the additions they made at the deadline last year because they were great depth guys and fill-in guys and just in case guys, but they were just in case guys if like Simmons got hurt or Dermott got hurt. There's no John Tavares contingency, and there's definitely no Jake Muzzin contingency. No. Morgan Reilly gets hurt. I think you can confidently throw Rasmus Sandin in there and he'll make some young mistakes, but he'll do an adequate job. Who do you put in Jake Muzzin's role? There's not a person in the organization.
No. What's happened to Nick Robertson? He was the guy who was supposed to be the next superstar in this team. I think he's broken his leg now or something, but what's happened with what's going on with this guy?
So with Nick Robertson, this is something that I wondered from all the way March 2020. Well, maybe April, because in March 2020 we all thought we'd be off for 2 weeks and then we'd be fine. But with Robertson and a lot of guys, I wondered, how are any prospects in the Leafs organization or any organization supposed to develop properly? I was at a Peterborough Pete's game, March 7th, 2020, and Robertson scored in the first period. Like, if you showed up wanting to see Nick Robertson score, less than 20 minutes, that's all it took. He was the best goal scorer in junior hockey, and he was supposed to have another full year of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he joins the Leafs in the bubble. He doesn't get to go back to junior. He makes the Leafs out of camp, gets hurt, has to join the Marlies again because there is no junior. The Marlies are garbage. The Leafs decide, okay, let's do the right thing, have him start a full season with the Marlies. And I think it was in the first game, he breaks his leg. So there are some players where I go, they're not working hard enough. They're not developing the way that we thought they would. With Nick Robertson, I think it's a genuine case of awful luck. Just awful luck. And now the question is, will he ever reach the potential we once thought he would?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I feel for that kid, man.
Yeah.
I feel for that kid.
Yeah. You mentioned a little while ago, you were ready with a tweet saying they need to make a trade.
Oh,
Who
yeah.
would they trade? What would you do?
So
let's play talk radio. Steve from Whitby.
Yep.
Out that way.
All right. So, well, first I got to have my spitter and yeah. So I think there's a few soft targets. Part of why I wasn't so upset with the Jared McCann trade is I didn't actually think they had long-term plans for Alex Kerfoot, but I did think they would trade him because they tried to protect that asset because he has some value, and then we'll trade him for something. I really don't understand his role on this team. He makes 3.5. They don't think he's good enough to be a center. So they have him third line wing, but this team can't afford a $3.5 million left winger. So they put him up in the top six, but when Mikheyev is back, he won't be like, to me, there's clearly no spot on this team for that player. So I would trade him. And then if you want to really make a statement, like, because Kerfoot's a bit deck chairs on the Titanic. Yep. If you want to really make a statement, well, you're not trading Matthews. Marner is a deal that would take a very long time. Tavares ain't happening. Morgan
you
Reilly.
Can't. Oh, Morgan. Okay. Yes, I agree. Yeah. I thought you were going to say Philly.
You thought he was going to say Nylander, but yeah, Reilly makes sense because he's only got a year left here. And when you look at the deals that some of these like Seth Jones, I think Seth Jones is a really good player. He's making 9.5. I don't think Morgan Reilly will, but like, how could he not go to a team and say, yeah, you better give me 8.5, and the Leafs just can't do it.
Or at least 7.5. And
yeah.
And, JVR's in the last year of his deal. Should we trade him? Well, no. And they didn't. Mm-hmm. And fine. Hyman's in the last year of his deal. Should we trade him? Well, no, they didn't. And that's fine. Because the caveat was, well, the Leafs are good. Why would we trade them? The Leafs are good. Well, now Morgan Reilly's in the last year of their deal or his deal, and they're garbage. So what do you do?
Garbage. Please don't say that.
Well,
you're right.
So far,
they've started garbage.
Yes,
it's been poor.
That's fair.
So, from an easy trade standpoint, like, Nylander is obviously an option too, Clarky, but Reilly.
No, I wouldn't trade him. I wouldn't trade Nylander.
I wouldn't. He's got. I've heard the argument for and against, and both arguments are complimentary of Nylander, right? Like he's got a lot of value.
Yeah.
But to me, Reilly, last year of his deal, that's the easy one.
And you probably flip him for another defenseman that makes similar money to him now and has a bit of term. That would probably be the ideal thing that the Leafs would do. Your Kerfoot comments are interesting to me because, again, I do this a lot with Clarky. I've done it with you, like just comparing it to the way things were when the Caps struggled for a long time. Like you look you look at their center depth when they finally figured it out. They had a guy as their third line center making exactly that, $3.5 million. His name's Lars Eller. All they had to give up was 2 second-round picks for him, and he just goes and scores the Stanley Cup clinching goal. But he, Backstrom fractured his wrist on that run and was out against Pittsburgh when they clinched finally against them. Kuznetsov got hurt in the final. Both of those instances, Lars Eller jumped up the lineup. He was on the top power play unit for a little bit, but then when they came back, those two guys, he shuffled back down, and it worked perfectly, but it was only for 2 or 3 games here and there. And you're right, the Leafs just don't seem to have that shuffle ability, if you will, if I can invent a word here, in their roster. And when the big guys do get hurt, you're right, they are left vulnerable. I don't think I could put it any better way.
And they doubled down on that rather than fixed it by getting a guy like David Kampf, who is fine. But if one of Matthews or Tavares get hurt, you're not going, all right, let's throw Dave in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Go get him, Dave.
Hilariously, when Matthews was missing preseason games, they put Kampf up with Marner and Ritchie, and that lasted, I think, half a period because Sheldon Keefe was like, wait a sec, I would never actually do this. So he threw, I can't remember who he put in his place, but it wasn't Kampf. He decided, well, instead of screwing up multiple lines, I'll throw, I don't remember who it was, maybe Kerfoot onto the top line and had Kampf go back down.
But Ritchie's been
awful.
Useless.
He's had a tough
if you can
start
him, I don't know who would take him, but if you could get rid of him too, you could.
Oof, man.
What are you replacing him? What are you replacing him with? That's the issue here, right? It's like, what do you replace that guy with? Because what kind of value?
Pick a guy from the Marlies. They can't be any worse.
But again,
honestly, they can't.
So you're plugging an AHL player in to fix an NHL problem again, though, Clarkie. That's what we're talking about here. They're not the Pittsburgh Penguins where they just seem to magically fart guys out that are just like, oh yeah, that guy scores 2 goals, and it's like I don't even know who half their team is anymore. You know what I mean? It's not like that. The Leafs aren't churning out 4th, 5th, 6th round picks that turn into something lately. And that's kind of the issue. If you flip, what do you really expect to get back for Nick Ritchie? Like with his value where it is.
A bag of pucks. Just get rid of him.
And the bag of pucks is going to play left wing with who? Like, I don't know. It's a weird problem, guys. I don't know how to feel about it. I'm not even cheering for the team.
They're not awesomely built is basically.
Well, that's the problem, right?
Here.
That's what we're discovering. Yeah. And there's only 2 people to blame in my
Steve,
mind.
and I'm interested in your thoughts. And Steve, you've talked a lot about this on your LFRs and the podcast. Everybody should subscribe to the SDPN, by the way. They got great shows on there. I just watched Chris Johnston's show the other day. You guys have awesome.
Maybe they should put the Instigators on there. Instigating, whatever it's called. What's our show called?
We're having a serious conversation here, and you're trying to work a business deal on the side.
That's right.
Chris Clark, the swindler. I'm curious about that because Clarky, you just said there's 2 guys to blame. What is your reaction when I say, or when people say to you, well, Dubas signed these deals and agreed to these deals because they thought the cap was going to go way up, and
they did.
And they did. What's your reaction to that? Because it doesn't really help them in the situation they're in now.
Dubas signed those long-term deals before the cap went flat. And if I had wheels, I'd be a wagon. Like there you go. Sorry, Kyle. Feel bad for you, bro.
Then every team should be in the same spot and they're not.
Yeah. Sorry, bro. Right? Team sucks. Like, listen,
I still think, and I'll let you go. The Marner deal was the worst. I said it at the time, and it's proving. I think this guy never.
That's hard to say too, right? Because like up until
he was a first team All-Star last year. I get it.
Yeah,
we've had a guy
regular season.
We've had a guy on this show who's told us. I'm not going to say who it is off air. The Leafs will never win with a guy like Mitch Marner, and this guy is involved in the league.
We did have a guest say that. Yes. Steve?
I've heard the same many times, and I'm dying for that to.
But you'll never win a
be
trade.
True.
how can you win it? Like, unless it's unbelievable, how can you ever think of trading this guy and win the trade?
He's Schrodinger superstar. Like he does and doesn't exist. He's a top 10 scorer. He's a bum. He's a guy you need to get rid of. He's a guy you can't win a trade with. It's so complicated. So that's why, like, Leaf fans, God, you have no choice but to root for him. You have no choice but to hope he gets out of this, because he's not going anywhere. So
doesn't look like it.
The only options are success or failure here.
Steve, before we let you go, I just wanted to, I was going to ask you what genius was involved with this decision, but all I'm going to ask, because I don't want to put you in a rough spot. Last year during the playoffs, you were doing some after Leaf game or during Leaf game chats.
They were awesome.
Then you put on your Habs hat. Maybe you didn't put on your, but you did it for the Habs. Now, is there no Steve Dangle for the Habs? Like, does that person not exist? Like, is there not one out there? Are you like
Steve's
this
very
year,
unique, Clarky?
If the Leafs play Carolina in the first round, is Steve Dangle going to be the Carolina guy?
David Ayers will.
How was that experience for you hosting Montreal Canadian games during the playoffs last year?
Well, first of all, Drury, we got David Ayers as a fellow Durham region resident, so yes. I'd happily invite him into the blue room, and we'd do Hurricanes games together.
Great guy too.
Maybe he can bring the crank thing, and
God,
piss off my wife and everything. Clarky, listen, I hear the anger.
Do you?
I hear the anger, and Leaf Nation, I heard the anger. Believe me, a lot of people were quite upset.
You don't have to tell it. Let me just ask this question: Would you do it again?
I would do it a third time, Clarky. I would do it over and over again. Listen, those streams were so fun.
I'm not disputing it was. I'm not disputing that whatsoever.
They were really fun.
But you're a Leaf fan, and it's just not right.
I know.
Do anything about the Habs. That's just what I'm saying.
It hurt my heart. There are Habs video bloggers, yes.
Well, then get one of those guys.
I don't disagree.
I know I'm not talking to you about.
They're not Steve though, and they don't work at Sportsnet, and Steve is the guy.
Yeah, I'm not their agent, and they asked me to do it, so I was like, absolutely.
Clarky, did you watch any of the streams? Because during the times
for Montreal,
during the times that I watched every second, and during the times when Steve was sitting there doing the Montreal games, he looked pained. Can I say that in his defense? He looked very pained.
Did you play it up as a Leaf fan doing a Montreal thing?
No, what I did. Well, yeah, no, so this was the funny part. Someone texted me the social media post they were going to put out, and it was just our watch a Leafs game with Steve Dangle thing, except it was red and said Habs, but I was still wearing a blue Leaf jersey. And I go, guys, did no one pick up on this? And they're like, we did pick up on it, and we did it on purpose because it's hilarious. And I was like, go with it. Go with it. It's too good. It's too good. I'm wearing a Leafs jersey in the Habs fan promo. And you know what? So I've had experiences with many fan bases in this league, and I can confidently say if we tried to do that exact same concept with watch an Oilers game with Steve Dangle, all of Oilers Nation would have been like, get out of here, you Toronto piece of garbage, you Ontario jerk, get out of here. But Habs fans were down for the ride.
They were great.
They thought it was funny, and I did my best to do right by them and be impartial. And I thought they were interested in my perspective of two teams that I don't cheer for, in Montreal and Vegas, and then Montreal and Tampa. And eventually the Blue guys won in the end.
They sure did. Steve, we really appreciate your time. I mean, the start of this conversation wasn't very fun, but you're one of the best guys out there. We love your stuff. Steve's book is still available. Please read it. I read it. It's hilarious.
Read the section about me.
Yeah, Clarky, you made the book, brother. Maybe I'll make part 2. This team is ruining my life, but I love them. It's available on audiobook as well.
Get your invoice in. Get your invoice in.
And before we let you go, Steve,
True.
You're now an accomplished author, content creator, commentator, and
Sounds like
you have entered the fashion world as well. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, hold on a minute. Okay, go ahead. Tell us first, and then we'll wait for the package.
Yeah. Sorry, by the way, I'm working on my second book. It's called Get Your Invoices In, Listen to Your Boss.
And don't lose a computer.
Yeah. So that's my second book.
Good.
But the merch, yeah. So Sportsnet, I guess, wants to get into this world, and they decided to use me as the guinea pig. and just like with the Habs thing, I don't know how to say no. So we proceeded, and it's done very well. It's done very well. We sold out of a few things, and we're getting some new things, and
nice.
I'm sure I'm just happy to help. Rogers make some money.
Absolutely. And
always down to help the little guy.
Yeah. and exactly. Yourself as well. You can get the stuff right on Sportsnet's website. And of course, there's links all over Steve's content as well.
And I must say, I do pick on him, and I do say some stuff, but he's a big star in this world, in the hockey world, and I'm proud of him. I really am.
Thanks, Clarky. You're a big reason for all that. So
no, you are. You're the reason. Anyway,
look at this love fest going on now, Clarky. Yo, you pick
on.
No,
I'm just saying he's the reason, not me.
No, you hang up.
Yeah, you hang up. We will hang up. We really appreciate everybody watching this show. This is Instigating with Clarky and Drury. We're brought to you by CoolBet and in part by the Listable Squash Courts. Remember to register on their Facebook page. We really appreciate Steve Dangle of the Steve Dangle Podcast Network and, of course, Sportsnet joining us here on the show. Steve, that was awesome, brother. Really great to see you. Glad you're doing well. Feel a little better. The little guy will come around for you, and we're glad everything's going well with that as well, my friend.
I just want to take my son to a second-round playoff game.
Yeah. Someday, man, it'll happen. Hey, man, if the Caps can do it, the Leafs can do it. Come on.
Bringing everything around to the freaking Caps. Wrap the show. Thanks for watching.
This is Instigating with Clarky and Drury. We'll see you next week.